Chris Lee, Blake Lovell, Blayne Gilmer of Southeastern 14 here. And today we preview probably the biggest game in the SEC so far, maybe the biggest game in the country so far. The third Saturday in October, hysteria is back. Tennessee is unbeaten. It is hosting unbeaten Alabama. This game is going to kick off 3:30 Eastern on CBS. Guys, this feels like a throwback to a game a quarter century ago.
Yeah, it's kind of fitting too because this is the last year it's going to be on CBS. With the TV rights and all that kind of stuff. The 3:30 matchup. It's undefeated teams in Rocky Top. It's going to be absolutely crazy in Knoxville
Bonkers.
all week, and then by the time 3:30 hits, it's going to be at a fever pitch over there. So excited to see this matchup between Heupel's offense and Nick Saban's defense over there. It's gonna be quite the matchup, Blake.
Yeah, Chris, I don't think you're playing it up far enough, Chris. There's no probably to it. This is as big as it gets. I mean, this is the game. Remember, Chris, you go back to our previews. We said circle this one. See how things play out to get to this point. But we said if both teams are undefeated heading into this, which was a possibility, we said look out. This could be the biggest game in the SEC the entire season. And here we are to this point. It's the biggest game in the SEC to this point. So, yes.
Yeah, the teams had opposite kinds of weekends. Alabama, for whatever reason, it just cannot handle Texas A&M very well. Crimson Tide held inside its 5 to hang on and beat A&M and Tuscaloosa despite being a 23.5-point favorite. Tennessee, in the meantime, went to LSU and just controlled that game start to finish. LSU fumbled the opening kickoff. Tennessee got it, scored a touchdown, and basically it was never a competitive game from there. Let's start when Alabama's got the ball. Crimson Tide averaging 44.3 points a game. Tennessee with a better than you'd think defense, giving up 17.8. On pass plays that adjust for sacks, Alabama averaging 7.5 per play. That's per run play. Tennessee giving up 3.7 adjusted for sacks on a pass. Alabama averaging 7.4 per play. The Vols giving up 6.1. But throw all the stats out, guys. It's does Bryce Young play or does not Bryce Young play? Because nothing against Jalen Milroe. That offense not nearly the threat to throw the ball that it was. You don't have nearly as much to think about with Young in there. I think Tennessee's defense is vulnerable to a passing attack like Alabama's with Bryce Young. I am guessing he's going to play. We will do a Wednesday Night Live show where we will talk more about it. But to me, whether Bryce Young plays or not, that determines how I lean in this game. How about you guys?
I think for sure. And when it comes to Alabama, they don't have the dynamic play at receiver that they've had in the past. They've got good receivers, but they don't have the Judys and the Jameson Williams and all those guys out there that have come through and just been game break. Even John Mechie's, for example, they just don't have those type guys this year. So it's been really Bryce Young making plays that are just miraculous and being very, very accurate with the football. Jalen Milroe is able to do some of that miraculous stuff with his legs, but the accuracy not there, the timing not there with the receivers. Jahmyr Gibbs obviously is a superstar, but that Tennessee front was able to get pressure with just 4 on LSU, and they'll do, I think, a better job of being able to contain Milroe if Bryce Young is not able to play. So I agree with you, Chris, and Blake. I think a lot of this, if for some reason whispers start coming out midweek, you're going to see that spread drop down from 8.5 to a lot. Who knows? It may get more close to a pick 'em if Bryce Young is not able to play.
Yeah, I mean, and everyone, if you subscribe to our channel, we do most of these either Sunday night, Monday. So we don't know yet. We're just kind of giving you our full preview of how we think the game's going to be matchup wise. But obviously, this is a hard one because you are talking about a player like Bryce Young and not knowing his status. That's a significant thing because look, Milroe, a lot of potential, right? We've seen it. We've seen the potentials there, but he's not Bryce Young, and there's a reason Bryce Young's the reigning Heisman winner, and was the favorite to win it perhaps again. Aside from the injuries had here the past couple of weeks, so it's just a different game offensively for Alabama when he's in there, and we just know what he brings to the table in terms of being able to push their offense to a level that it just can't get to, I think, without him. And Blayne brought up a good point about, it's not the same receiving group. It's sort of just a different group that we said was going to continue to get better. And we've seen, I mean, we know there's playmakers there, but it's one of those things where I think with this offense this season, obviously having him under center, not having him under center, it's a big difference. And especially when you go on the road in a game like this and this kind of atmosphere that it's going to be, that I don't even think we can put into words exactly what this atmosphere is going to be like on Saturday. It's just a huge difference. And so until we know that, obviously it's hard to know how to predict Alabama offensively against the Tennessee defense. Chris, I think you're muted. The Oreo mute is back.
The Oreo mute is back. Tennessee has forced 10 turnovers so far, 5 fumbles, 5 interceptions. Alabama doesn't turn it over a lot, just 5 on the year.
They sure did against Texas A&M.
Well, they sure did. Other than that, but yeah, I mean, goodness, A&M just, I don't know what, but it has got Alabama's number. But the thing I was going to bring up, Jahmyr Gibbs has been so good. I think the Young injury has obscured his effectiveness the last couple of weeks. Again, that rushing yardage per rushing play, again, taking out sacks, they're averaging almost 7.5 yards a carry. The Tennessee's defense has been pretty good. It's giving up about half that. But that's something to watch because Gibbs has sort of carried this team the last couple of weeks with the injury to Young and certainly – it has been terrific in that span.
Yeah, no doubt that the defense, I think, for Tennessee has been better, and Alabama's defense is unbelievable. But you mentioned Jahmyr Gibbs and his yards per play. That's probably skewed a little bit by that Arkansas performance out there a little bit. But man, I don't know. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs is an unbelievable player, as you mentioned. But I think we're going to talk about it here in a minute. That Alabama defense just filled with unbelievable players, and really the reason they hung on in that game. Will Anderson, all those kind of guys. You've been beating the drum, saying, is Will Anderson a Heisman candidate and stuff like that? Well, he certainly played like one this past game. And, Blake, I'm excited to see that specific matchup of the Alabama front versus the defensive front versus Tennessee offensive line. Heupel, what will he dial up? Because, hey, if you remember back to that Texas game, Quinn Ewers and company, they were hitting some shots early in that game against Alabama. Now, Alabama does have Terrion Arnold at corner now, where they did not before, and it's kind of shored things up over there on that left side corner. But it's going to be interesting to see.
All right, Chris, give us the numbers.
Okay, when Tennessee's got the ball, 46.8 points a game.
Woo.
Alabama giving up 12.5. Here's the big thing. Tennessee has not thrown an interception. I think the last time Hendon Hooker threw an interception, Barack Obama may have been president. I don't know. It's been a while.
He's old enough.
He is the second oldest quarterback in the league to Stetson Bennett. Let's see. When Tennessee runs the ball, Vols averaging 5 yards a carry, Alabama giving up 3.2 adjusted for sacks. Per pass play, Vols averaging 10 yards a throw.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Adjusted for that is 10 yards a throw and no picks, guys.
It's pushing it down the field.
That's I mean, look, let's be blunt here. If you're a Heisman voter and Hendon Hooker is not at or near the top of your list, then what are you doing with the vote?
Yeah, he's got a big opportunity this week for sure. I mean, to really solidify a spot there.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the thing too is we talked about Tillman, right, the past couple weeks,
And
and
Tillman's
getting
been
him
out
back.
2 games. Yeah.
And like look at what he's doing like without him, but with the anticipation, and as we said, we're recording this late Sunday night. The anticipation seems to be that he will play in this game. Now, again, we'll see if that's the case. We'll talk about it more on Wednesday, but um, I mean, if you're getting your best playmaker back at the right time going into this game, and you talked about the numbers, Chris, the numbers don't lie in terms of what Tennessee's offense is capable of. Now, have they played a defense like Alabama's yet? No, but that's, one of the more fascinating things here is to see what they're able to do against this defense. But if you're talking about momentum, I don't know how it's any higher for Tennessee from the fact that they went down and did whatever they wanted to pretty much offensively against LSU in a game that a lot of us looked at and thought, man, this could be close. LSU's front, what kind of problems would they give them? And now you're talking about getting their best playmaker back, perhaps, in this game. I don't know how you could be any more confident offensively if you're Tennessee heading into a game where, guess what? You better be confident offensively if you want to be able to score against Alabama. So,
Well, here's one thing that can dampen your enthusiasm a little bit, and you notice I give the numbers for both sides. I almost didn't believe this number. I had to check it to make sure it was right. Alabama giving up 4.3 yards per pass play, adjusted for sacks. That is absurd.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I mean, this is strength on strength, guys. Now the thing is, the one thing if you're Alabama, well, there's a lot. I mean, anytime you're playing Hendon Hooker is a concern, but Alabama's only got 2 interceptions. So now maybe when you're not on the field for a lot of plays and you're forcing 3s and outs, there's fewer opportunities for picks. But
yeah, when the quarterback's on the ground, he's not throwing an interception. So
right. Now he might be fumbling it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's it. And Alabama does have 18 sacks. The Vols have given up 8.
Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting. Like you said, unstoppable force meets immovable object type deal, the old cliche there. So when it comes to it, I don't know. Cedric Tillman comes back, but Alabama is just seems to be clicking on all cylinders on all 3 levels of their defense. Storyline within the storyline, Henry To'oTo'o, that was a Tennessee Vol early in his career. He's going to going back to Rocky Top. He's going to want to play well there. So lots of little storylines in the SEC that you love to watch. But I'm just excited to see that Tennessee front, how they handle the exotic blitzes that Pete Golding is going to dial up against some of those looks, because they're going to probably have some checks based off formations and things like that. And can Tennessee get those fast starts that it's used to under Heupel? Because that's what it's been able to do. Even last year against Alabama, it started fast. It petered out, later in the game. But Blake, we'll see how they handle that Alabama defensive front.
it's so hard too because if you look at Alabama and who they played, they clearly have not played an offense like this in terms of, and a lot of teams could say that, right? Not just Alabama. And I think that's kind of hard to gauge too, because when you look at their opponents, right? Utah State, Texas, Louisiana Monroe, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, A&M, I just like it's so hard to say, okay, let's find something that compares to what you're going to see with Tennessee. There's just not a comparison here. And I think that's where you look at the stats for both sides and you're thinking, Tennessee hasn't played a defense like this. Alabama hasn't played an offense like this. Like it's just telling you guys, it just all sets up for this to be exactly what we said it could be way back when in the preseason. And we're looking at the schedule. We're saying, what are those big games down the line from a matchup standpoint? Like we've said, like it's all there. Like everything is there. And especially like this is where you're rooting for Bryce Young and Cedric Tillman to come back. Because if you got everybody on each side at full strength, I mean, this is just going to be a lot of fun. So,
here's one more thing,
Chris.
What's that?
I said prediction time. What are you thinking?
Well, we're getting there. A couple more things. Tennessee was without Gerald Mincey, its left tackle against LSU. Yeah. Didn't seem to bother them, but when you're facing Will Anderson, that might be an issue. Yeah. So that's something to watch for. Here's another thing, guys. I'm looking at FEI special teams ratings. Alabama 14th. I don't think that includes the A&M game. Tennessee 105. Now, the Vols did get a special teams fumble recovery and a huge punt return. So I imagine that number's going to go up. But FEI's got Alabama's special teams as being a good deal better than Tennessee's. Again, it's not recalibrated for last weekend's game. So in a game that could be close, although Alabama, Will Reichard did miss a couple of field goals that he normally hits. So that's just worth a mention. I'm going to cop out.
Oh,
Is we're doing this Sunday night.
Boo.
Well, go right ahead. I do. Okay, I'll say this.
I'll go first if you want me to, because I'm.
You go first.
I know exactly what I'm going to do here.
Okay.
Set it from the beginning, guys. Like who's been the high man on Tennessee all year? I feel like I've been the high man, and maybe I'm high, but like I'm just telling you right now that I think it is a situation where, again, obviously I'm going to change my stance perhaps depending on who plays. If Bryce Young plays, Cedric Tillman doesn't, maybe I'm going to be rethinking this. But there is just something about this game, and I've said there is something about this offense that I know it's Alabama. I know defensively the numbers are what they are. But, man, when you think about all the elements in play here, biggest game for Tennessee in how long? 2 decades plus at this point, perhaps, in terms of the setup here. I just love the way they're playing right now. And I know there is no comparison to playing somebody like Alabama to what they've seen thus far. I'm going to pick Tennessee to win this game. Spread is what, 8.5, something like that. All that's going to, like Blayne said, it's going to really depend on if Bryce Young plays. If he doesn't play, that line's going to go down. If he does play, and let's say a Tillman doesn't play, I wouldn't be surprised if that number kind of pushes up a little bit. A lot of unknown elements. But right now, as we're recording this, I am telling you that I'm picking Tennessee to win this game.
Now, is that contingent on Young playing or not? You're going Tennessee regardless.
Well, obviously it's gonna be a little less stronger if he plays, but I'm gonna pick Tennessee to win this game because listen, another thing too, we've said all year, there have been times where Alabama has just been sloppy. And I know last week was a little bit different because he didn't play, but even in that Texas game, we said there are some of those things that are just kind of standing out with this team. I just, Blayne said, fast start here. Wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee comes out to a fast start with the way they score. I'm picking them to win. So,
yeah, I'm going to take Tennessee to cover the 8.5. I'm taking Alabama to win, regardless whether Young plays or not. Just because we've seen it in the past. Alabama goes on the road, looks not very good, and somehow ends up pulling the rabbit out of their hat at the end. You're talking about, against Auburn last year, against Texas this year. And it seems that as long as Nick Saban and Will Anderson are on the other sideline, hey, give me Alabama to win it. But I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee wins, but I do think they cover. But I think Alabama takes it home.
All right, I'm going right down the middle of you two. If Bryce Young plays, I take Alabama to win outright, but Tennessee to cover. If Bryce Young does not play or is not close to being Bryce Young, I take Tennessee to win outright. So, by the way, one more note. These are the two most penalized teams in the SEC. Alabama giving up 72 yards of penalties a game or being charged with, and in Tennessee, that number at 79. So,
and
both teams have made a lot of mistakes.
And one team's at home.
Yeah. So, for whatever that's worth. Anyway, we will circle back on our Wednesday night live show. Is hopefully have a better idea of, man, there's a ton of variables with this, with all the injuries and things. So we will tell you what we know and what we think and how what has changed and what we know affects what we think on Wednesday night. So best way to get our live shows, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. We'll see you then.